Hi, I'm Tony, and I'm showing you a plugin from NUGEN Audio today. This plugin's called Stereoizer, and I'm going to show you a little demo track here that I put together for it. Now, I'm going to bypass the plugin during the demo track here. A little guitar, some bass, the drums will come in, and then I'm going to unbypass it. And so this plugin is used for the introduction and control of stereo spread into a mono or stereo signal. So this is essentially a stereo widening plugin that is mono compatible, and I'm gonna just bypass it again here and then put it back in. I have it on the master bus here of this mix, so you can hear a difference there. And I'll go through all of the parameters that you can change on this. So this does have two algorithms that deal with the stereo spread. The first of the two is called intraoral intensity difference, or IID, and that's the difference in level of the left and right channel. So it's an algorithm that is in charge of that. And there's another algorithm called interaural time difference, or ITD, which controls the difference in the time of arrival between the left and right channels. Also traditionally known as the Haas effect. It's not as intense as a traditional Haas effect, but it does work the same way of just delaying the left or right channel to make it sound wider, because that's an innate thing that our brain perceives. If one channel is delayed more than the other, you perceive it as wider. Okay, so I'll go over some of the ways you can control those two algorithms and some of the other parameters here. So you can control the spread, the stereo spread percentage of the IID algorithm here with this slider, the width slider here. And you can see in this window everything that I'm engaging with in the plugin. You can see what I'm clicking on and the percentage and all the number values here. So if you want to follow along while I'm doing that. And you can also change the percentage of the width of the ITD here too. And you can see in the middle there's a stereo analysis, frequency analysis meter in the middle. And you can turn that on and off if you want with this button. And so for the IID and ITD, you can adjust the bounds of the frequencies that are being changed or being spread in the stereo spread. So you can go all the way up to 22 kilohertz with it on the ITD side, and same with the IID. And then you can also adjust the low bounds, so the bass frequencies. And usually when I'm using a stereo spread plugin, I want to take some of the bass out of it, because when you spread bass, sometimes it'll get a little phasey and a little weird sounding. So you'll see, I'll give an example of that. So I'll take this and I'll put it all the way down to 20 hertz. And you can hear how the bass gets a little blown out and a little weird sounding. So I'm just going to take that out of the stereo spread. You can do that if you want, for an interesting effect, but I wouldn't do it in this mix context here. And you can see on the bottom there's a right and left meter showing the level of the left and right. And so you can also link the controls for the IID and ITD algorithms here, so that when I change the bounds of the high end here, it'll change for both algorithms. And then you can also adjust both width of the IID and ITD this way as well too, with the link on. So I will turn it in just a little bit more here and turn link off. You can also adjust the resolution of the IID algorithm here. So this is at the highest resolution here. So if you want your stereo spread to have less resolution for various reasons, just for a mix context, maybe you think it sounds better for that instrument or that particular mix, you can change that resolution down lower. You can hear how it's a little more lo-fi sounding. Put it back up. You hear how the high end kind of comes back better here too. And so this has phase invert on. I'm going to turn it off. So you can invert the phase here. Also, you can change on the ITD side here the acuity of the signal. This is going to be, let's see, Let me just solo the drums here. So I'll go back to this part of it. So this is gonna kind of change the attack. So of the ITD algorithm. So it gets a little sharper up when you turn it all the way up. And then when you go down about the middle, I like that there. Or you can turn it down even more. And you can feel how the attack of the signal has changed with the acuity slider here. So I'll put it in the middle. And we'll take it back to the mix again. So you can also click this fill button here for the ITD side, and that's going to make it sound a little denser. But that is the only part of the plugin that's not mono compatible, so just got to be aware of that. There's some other interesting features included here. There's a linear width slider, which is a traditional stereo spread slider. So I recommend using this for critical mix or mastering situations where you don't need the rest of the parameters of the plugin. You simply just want to take it from 100% width and make it just wider there. You can hear that. And you can turn the other parts off while you do that and just create more stereo spread in it. Listen for a second. So this would be for like a mastering situation. I would probably go about somewhere here and we'll bypass it. Back in. Exaggerate it. Bypass it again. Back in. Okay. So we'll put that back to about 0 here. And let's turn on the algorithms here, the ID and ITD sides. So there's also an in and out meter here showing the audio going in and out, and you can turn on auto gain compensation here. It's counting down, and it'll compensate for the gain of turning up the, the stereo spread. It'll compensate for that automatically there. You can also turn everything to mono there, and you can invert this phase here by a percentage up to 100%, which is interesting, just to get a different feel there of the phase of the signal. Go back to 0, turn it off. Okay, and then also there's a dynamic section. This is really interesting. This introduces. I'm gonna just solo the guitar here. Actually, let's drag this instead of the master being on the guitar here. So we're gonna hear just the guitar. Okay. So when I turn on this dynamic section, you can hear it's almost like a chorus effect. So you can adjust the depth of the dynamics of the stereo spread. You can hear that change, a little more chorusy. And you can also adjust the speed of the dynamics of the stereo spread and get really creative with this. And this is interesting to put like on this guitar if you want to make it sound a little more phasey, a little more interesting, or like on synths or pads, that would be interesting as well. Or if you wanted to just turn this on for change for like a bridge section or going from the verse to a chorus in a song in a mix. And there's also sort of like an LFO style sine wave here you can have in it. There's different shapes, triangle, square, and you can see how it affects the sort of LFO of the dynamics of the like enhancement. And there's a couple more shapes there too. And you can tempo lock this by clicking this, so it's going to be locked to the tempo of your song. So that's interesting creative effects with the dynamic section. Turn that off. And so this is just on the guitar again. Let's put it back to the master, unsolo that. So you can hear the whole thing again. And then, so this is great for mixing and mastering, and then also making sure that your stereo spread is compatible for playback systems. A lot of playback systems are still in mono and clubs and stuff like that. And then you can add a stereo feel to those mono signals. A lot of TVs still are in mono, and some Amazon devices are in mono. So, you can have that wider stereo feel in those mono playback systems. And then, so if you'd like to check this out for yourself, you can go download a demo today at NUGENaudio.com and try it out yourself. Thanks. Have a good one. Hi, my name is Tony, and I'm going to show you a plugin today from NUGEN Audio. This plugin is called Monofilter. Monofilter was designed for the control of stereo width and phase correlation in the low frequencies of the audio spectrum. So essentially, what this plugin will do is mono your bass frequencies so they're in the center. And the reason why you want to do that is bass frequencies are perceived to be omnidirectional. So in your listening environment, it sounds like the bass is coming from all sides of the room. And when you mono your bass signal, it's more defined and focused in the middle of the stereo field, and that prevents the stereo bass information from creating the perception of a swirling effect that will make your mix or the music you're listening to seem a little bit phasey and moving unintentionally. So it's just going to really just keep that bass in the middle instead of having it moving around the sides. So I have a little demo track set up here, and we'll go ahead and listen to that, and I'll go over some of the other features of the plugin. So this is a little guitar, bass, and drum track I put together for this. Alright, so this plugin can be used for tracking, mixing, and mastering. And I'll go over the interface real quick here. So in the center here, you can see there's a graphic representation. And this is the left and right information along the frequency spectrum from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And you can actually change the stereo width if you want to there. And you can make it the high frequency information more narrow or wider there. And then there's a cutoff frequency here that's going to show the algorithm what the bass information is going to be put into mono. So you can see there's a window down here. You can see all the numbers that I'm changing. So with this, I can put the bass frequencies lower. So it's monoing the frequencies lower here or higher up on the frequency spectrum. And you can also, there's a high pass filter here if you want to just high pass the whole signal. And you can change what you're looking at here. You can turn off the peak metering so you can see the lines on the way for the peaks. You can turn the graphic display on and off. You can look at the information pre-plugin here. So you can see the bass information on the low end here. It's all over the place. So it's really uncontrolled. I'm going to restart the song. So it's really uncontrolled, all over the place. And that's what creates sort of that swirling motion. And the bass is less defined. And I'll show you an example of that right now. So I'm going to bypass the plugin. Now listen for the kick drum and the bass guitar. This is what I bypassed. Just a little bit tubby and undefined, and makes the whole mix feel a little more muddy, I would say. So when you unbypass it here, listen for the bass when it comes back in. Here it's more in the middle, more defined. The kick drum feels like it has a little more power. That's because the low end is mono, it's in the middle. And that leaves all the high-end information, the guitar and the overheads of the drums on the sides. So You can also listen to just the left information, right information, in the stereo. It has a trim control for the mid information and side information, so you can turn that up and down if you click and drag. So I can put more side information and less. So that's useful. And there's a clip indicator. I just cleared that. You can do an auto trim where you can have the algorithm decide if it needs to trim the audio in the mid or the sides. And then there's a level meter here. You can also listen in mono or stereo or the full mix. You can change the phase inversion here by a certain percentage, positive or negative. You can see all the values here. Bring it back to the middle here, about the middle. Okay. You can also turn that on auto as well, so the algorithm will decide if it needs to adjust the phase for you. You can also view in 1/3 octave bars here, so it kind of zooms in on your audio. All right. And so there are some other adjustments to the algorithm here. You can pause it for a second. So I need to pause it before I change these algorithms. So the zero latency mode, you can hear it sounds about the same. It's a little less defined than the linear phase mode I was on. So that's going to cause the filter curves to not be as defined, and this is useful because it's zero latency, so you can use it in a live environment if you're using for a playback system, for some synths or whatever, backup for a band that you're playing through for them, or if you're tracking and you let me restart it. If you're tracking and need to go ahead, if you need to have a rapper in the booth listen to a 2-track beat and the low end is all over the place and you want them to hear it more defined and less distracting during a recording session, you can just put this on the 2-track beat with zero latency and they can hear that straight through with the bass monoed. So let me pause it again, go to linear phase mode. And so on linear phase mode, that's more for a mixing situation, that the filters that define the mono low end and the separate side information is going to be a little more defined. It's going to cause the bass to be I would say more pronounced in the middle. And then also you can, let me pause it here again. Now, high quality mode is more for a mastering situation. So this is going to be the heaviest CPU hit, but also is going to have the most defined filters. So that's going to be just your bass is going to be defined a little bit more for a mastering situation. So I'm also going to take this and I'm going to move it. I'm going to move the plugin from the master bus I have it on and put it on just the drums. So I'm going to pause this solo. I'm going to solo the drums and just show you what it does for the kick drum here. Okay, so I'm going to bypass it. And so you can see the low end information here. Let's see pre. So you can see the kick drum is kind of all over the place, left and right, not really in the middle. So let me take it out of pre, and then let me unbypass it. Now you can feel how much more powerful the kick is in the middle there. And then I'm going to bypass it again. Feel how the kick is just a little more flubby, a little more tubby. Flabby, I meant to say, not flubby. And then unbypass it. A lot more power in that kick, right? And that's because it's monoing that bass frequency in the kick, so it's more in the middle. And then also, I feel like it makes the side information a little cleaner without the bass in it. Okay, I'm gonna unsolo that here. We'll just go from the beginning again. All right, and then so an interesting thing too is that if you take the slider here and move it in, that's going to narrow the side information. So you can hear how it's getting more narrow. And so that can be really interesting if you're sending on a bus in your mix to like a stereo processor, like a reverb or a delay, and you don't want all of the side information going to it. That's useful for that. Or in a live playback situation, if you're using the zero latency mode and you don't want the audience to hear as wide of a mix because the speakers are right in front of them and they don't necessarily need that like in a studio situation, you can narrow the mix of whatever you're sending them so it feels more directional to them. So that concludes my walkthrough of Monofilter, and if you want to check it out for yourself, you can download a demo today at NUGENaudio.com. All right, have a great one. Hey, I'm Tony, and I'm going to show you a plugin today from NUGEN Audio. The plugin's called SigMod. SigMod is a flexible signal modification utility plugin that adds missing master and channel strip features from your DAW, such as mid-side, conversion, and output level protection, amongst many other things. So I'm going to get started and show this little demo track in the background, and we'll start going over the feature set of SigMod. Little guitar, bass, and drum track going. All right, so on the interface here, I'll show the signal flow first. So on this side and the left side is the left-right in. It goes left to right, and then it goes through various modules in the middle and out left and right in this preset here. On the top here, there's a bypass button, undo, redo, A/B between two different settings button there, and A to B so you can switch back and forth there. So I recommend to really dive into this, just to start with one of the presets so you can see how the modules are set up. I'm going to start out with LR operator, close it. So left right in on this side, and I'm just doing the stereo output of this mix. This next module is switch. Switch module, I click it, it switches left and right. So it switches whatever is right before it here. And this one is the trim module, and so I can trim up and down the left channel or right channel. If I do that on the bottom, the same thing. You can link it so both of them go together, and then unlink it. And also I can mute left, mute right with this module. It's a mute module. Link them both, mute it all together. There's also a mono module here, so I can just sum it to mono there. Again, it's going out left and right on this preset here. So if I click this little cogwheel here and go into the settings here, we'll go into the module setup. So you can see how everything is put in line here from the input, the switch, trim, mute solo, mono button, and the output that I all went through. And so you can take out modules by clicking the X. So let's just click the X. Took out the switch and go back. You see the switch is no longer there. And then I can actually add modules in here. Let's go after the mono right before the output. And you can see the list of all the insert modules here. So there's one for mid-side, mute solo, tap, phase, mono, protect, switch, delay, crossover, trim, DC offset, and insert. So let's just put in the DC offset module to this preset that we already had here. So here is the DC offset module. So I'm going to click on this, and it's going to count down 3, 2, 1, detect. Didn't detect any DC offset, but if I did, I would just click this and it would show the numbers for the DC offset here, and take that out of the signal. Okay, let's just take that one out, just delete it out of the signal path. Let's add in the protect module. So we have the master bus here. So let's say during a playback situation, you have some sound effects or music going through front of house console, and you don't want it to go over 0 dB. So actually, let's do something lower than that. Let's just do 3 dB. So left went over 3 dB, it cut it out, so it protected the output. So that's just the left side, right? So let's turn that back up. Let's link it. So at -5 dB, it hit that already, the mix bus did, so it muted the output, so it protected at -5 dB going out. So that's good if you want to protect your playback systems in like in a live setting. If you don't want to go over a certain amount of headroom for your mix from your playback system here. Okay, let's just get that out of there. So that's one example of how to use protect. And let's see here. That also works if you're doing like a send return to analog gear or something you don't want to go over whatever that analog gear can accept, and you want just to cut off so you don't want to break your vintage compressor or something like that. You know, right before your send return from your DAW, you can do that as well. It's another example of using protect. Okay, so let's add another module. Another interesting one is mid-side. So we'll put mid-side in. So you can put mid-side conversion before anything in your DAW now, just using this plugin. So here's your mid-side module, and you can see there's a window down here that shows everything that I'm selecting and all the values if you were following along there. So we're going to turn on the mid-side converter there, and so it converted the left-right signal to mid-side, and I can turn off the mid, so here just the side information of this little mix here. Turn that off, turn the mid on, and that's just the mid information. And so the matrix isn't set up right, so you're not hearing mid-side. It's like, that's like left, mid, right side, right? So let's go in. I could set that up, but I'm just going to show you quickly here. Let's go to mid-side operator. So just one of the presets here. You'd have to have 2 of those to do it properly, right? Okay, so here's the mid-side matrix. There's 2 of them. There's 2 modules, so it's doing it right. So watch this. So when I solo, this is a solo module. So if I solo left, hear that? Exclude that out. Okay, so that was soloing the mid inside there. Saw that, and then I can go mono. You can got a mono button in there, and then you can trim. Let's try trimming this side. So that's trimming the mids all the way down. You hear that? Let's turn it back up near 0, and then let's trim down the sides. So now you're hearing just the mid information that way. So that's interesting if you want to just have a duplicate of this track and send just the mids to a compressor or something on a bus, or, you know, check the mids. You can turn up the mids or turn up the sides if you have an uneven composition, which I often do. And that could be kind of cool, just to turn up the mids so that the vocals and the bass and the drums are just, the kick drum are a little bit louder in the mix, just a tiny bit. That would really be helpful. So let's go back in here to LR operator, that preset. Okay, another thing this can do is it can set up a crossover. So let's go and add in the crossover here. So I'm going to turn it on, and this has a high pass. Actually, let's do this. Let's put this on the guitars, solo the guitar. So there's a high pass crossover set at let's just 4.8 kilohertz, and so that's on. You're just hearing 4.8 kilohertz and above. So if I click this, I can send this to the receive plugin that comes with SigMod, and I'll send that to receive 1, which I already have set up here on a reverb bus. You can see what it looks like right here, and it's SM crossover. So SM is short for that, right? Okay, so I'm sending from this plugin from the crossover frequency and above to receive 1 to here to the reverb bus into this reverb. So I'm sending without using the DAW sends to another bus using the receive plugin. And so the reverb is just getting the high-end information, which is pretty cool. I mean, there's so many uses you could think of for that. You could just do a duplicate of the guitar track and use the crossover of SigMod on the duplicate, mute the output of that one, and send that to the reverb bus, so you're getting just the high end of the reverb going to the bus, and you still have you can just take everything off the other guitar track so it's normal. So you can get really complicated with some of the processing features of using the crossover module inside of SigMod. So let's go and put this back into the master here. And that disconnected the receive there. And I'm going to go back to LR operator just as our kind of go-to start-off point. And there's a lot of different presets here. Go back to previous starting points of how to learn how to use the plugin, because it can be kind of confusing at first, I think, until you get under the hood and understand what all the modules do and how flexible it could be. So, speaking about how flexible it is, one really cool feature is this is a VST host. So, when you're using a DAW like Pro Tools that cannot host VSTs, you can go in here. You can host VSTs, that's what I meant to say. And let's go to the insert module. So, watch this. Here's the insert module here. So I'm going to go into this cogwheel, and I'm going to browse right there, and I'm in my VST folder already. And then, so a lot of these are already VST plugins. Let's see, let's just do, this is a free one here from another plugin manufacturer. Okay, so I put a VST inside of SigMod here, and I can click on it and use that VST inside of Pro Tools. Here, turn it on. And let's see here. You can see how I can use it inside of it now. It's pretty cool. All right, and turn that back off. And that goes for any VST plugin. You know, that one is actually an AAX plugin as well, but that's just an example because I don't have everything on the system that's not AAX and VST compatible. So I think that concludes the walkthrough of SigMod here. If you have any questions, or if you want to just check it out yourself, you can go to nugenaudio.com and you can download a demo of SigMod today. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.